Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. So in this particular video we'll be learning about the two important topics, that is what I mean by xerophytic condition, the xerocere, and the second topic is hydrocele. So what do you mean by xerophytic? So as you are all well aware of this word called as xerophytic condition, it is nothing but the condition where the dry plant exists. What do you mean by dry plants? The plants which are adapted to the dry condition can be termed as your xerophytic plants, or which require only less amount of water for their survival, or the plant which will not let the rate of transpiration increase in them can be termed as your xerophytic plants. So in case of these xerophytic plants, how will their evolution happen there? That is what you mean by xerocere here. And nextly, you know well about your hydrophytes. Hydrophytes are nothing but the plants adapted for the water conditions, or the plants which are able to live only in the water media can be termed as your hydrophyte plant. So in case of a hydrophytes, how will the evolution continue there? So this is a brief ideology of the topics which we are going to discuss in this particular video. I'll let you know what you mean by cere. So this is a common thing which you can see in hydrocele as well as xerocere here. Cere is nothing but how will they progress? How will a particular plant community progress here? So let me give an example before getting you into this topic. That is, let's imagine you have seen a place before 10 years. So let's take a place as X. It may be somewhere in your village or native place, or any place which you have been long ago before. That is, you have visited the place before 10 years. If you see the same place after 10 years, won't you find any difference there? Surely you will find there. That is because of a succession undergoing. So if you want an ideology of this one, I can give you one example. Let's take a place as X. This is a piece of land I am taking as X. So you have visited this place around 2010. So when you have visited this particular place here, this was a barren land. There was nothing. Just a barren land was found there, and no, not even a sight of a green plant was found in that particular area. Nothing was seen. But when you see the same place X in the year 2020, you would have seen a different view there. Again, it is uncultivated, it was not taken by anyone, it was not handled by anyone, nothing was happening there. Yet also, what you can see is a place was properly maintained with some greens there. So how was this occurring there? So either a hydrocele or a xerocere would have occurred there. So what do you mean by this hydrocele and xerocere? It is nothing but a succession. So let's take an example. If an succession occurs from a barren land to a complete climax community. So you want to answer two things. One is the primary community. Primary community is the community which will invade the particular piece of land in the first time itself. So as I told, this is a barren land. If this land was initially taken up by a particular group of plants, they can be called as your primary community. So if you want to understand the xerocere here, this will be taken up by a land plant. Any land plants from your bryophytes, anything can take up there. Okay, they'll start from a land plant and they'll go on in their succession way, like a bryophyte, a pteridophyte, a gymnosperm, a shrub, a tree, and a climax community. So what do you mean by climax community? This is the last one, that is climax. What I mean by climax community? if a piece of land is having that particular type of vegetation for a longer period of the vegetation, if it is not changed at all, it is a permanent thing, it is not at all going to change, that change or that particular community can be called as your climax community. So both will have an primary community and well as a climax community here. See, if it starts from a barren land to a climax community, then it is called as xerosear. If it is happening in a piece of land having some water resource, it may be a small pond. Let's imagine you have seen a pond in 2008 and now if you go and see there is no pond. The pond has been completely converted into a land area where it is having huge trees grown there. Then that can be called as what? Hydrocele here. Do you understand? Xerosear is nothing but the succession of a plant community from a dry area. There is no water resource or anything there, just a barren land. It has been completely succeeded with different types of plants and they have got a climax community there. Whereas in case of hydrocele, what's happening here is a water resource. It may be a small pond, okay, or it may be a small a piece of land having some water, okay. That particular land has been converted into a vast climax community, then that is called as what? Hydrocele here. So there are different stages of a hydrocele as well as xerosear here. I'll be explaining in a diagrammatic manner within a minute. So now we'll be learning about hydrocele. As I given you the introduction about hydrocele, here we'll be going for the various stages of hydrocele here. So we have got different stages of hydrocele here. Let me number them first. First one, second one, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and final one is eighth one. So these are the various stages of hydrocele here. See, the hydrocele will always start in a water resource here. Let's take an example. This particular part given here is a pool or a pond. That's been in a particular area. It's a small pond over there. So it was uncultivated or unattended by for a long period of time here. So what happens? There was a succession of plant group occurring here. So what was the first thing occurred here was a phytoplankton. So what do you mean by phytoplankton? It is a free floating structure. Any small plant which is freely floating on the surface of water can be termed as what? Phytoplankton here. So that was the first thing to appear there. So this was the first stage of your hydrocele here. So followed by this your phytoplankton, there was the second stage called as free floating. This was the next stage, and there was a huge gap between the phytoplankton stage as well as free floating stage. As you have learnt about evolution here, evolution is a continuous, gradual, slow process. It will not happen immediately. Like if you see a phytoplankton today, you cannot as for your free floating plant in a next day or a next week. It may take some time over there. So in a gradual period of time, the phytoplanktons will decrease and the free floating plants will take up that particular area. Followed by this free floating plant, it was the term of a submerged plant. So what do you mean by submerged plant? It was a plant or a hydrophytic plant which was grown in the water completely. No parts of your plant was observed outside the water. It is different from both the stages you can observe here. Phytoplankton, a small plant, free floating. It was a normal plant, free floating. But the third stage is completely changed over. A plant is completely growing in the depth of a pool or a pond without having any of its parts to the outside environment. So followed by this particular stage is nothing but your submerged floating. See how the evolution is occurring here. It is a bettering. It is bettering from one stage to the other stage. See, when after the submerged stage there is a submerged floating stage where you can see a plant is found both in the water as well as to the outer environment. Here you can see the few parts of the plant is found floating on the surface of the water, as well as a part of plant has also been submerged here. This was the next stage. Followed by this stage was the reed swamp stage. So what do you mean by this reed swamp stage? It is nothing but the plants which are gradually floating on the water, not like phytoplankton, but they are bit advanced than that of your phytoplankton and the free floating plants. They are completely developed plants and they are found floating on the water surface here. And lastly it will be the marsh. So what do you mean by marsh? This marsh stage is very important here because it is the connection between a hydrocele to the land here. As you know, hydrocele is completely dependent on water, but it is gradually developing from water plants to the land plants here. So this your marsh stage will be acting like an connecting link between both your water plant, that is hydrophyte, as well as the mesophyte, that is the land plant. Once there is an occurrence of your marsh stage, that confirms that the water has been completely taken away and only the land plants will grow in that particular area. So once the marsh is found, it is an indication that the particular area is completely converting into an mesophytic region. Mesophytes are the plants which grow on land here. See, once this marsh stage is completed, there is a stage called as woodland stage. Woodland stage is a stage before or just before to that of your climax community. So this stage confirms that this is the one before stage of your climax community that will confirm there is going to be a climax community here. So followed by your woodland stage, there is a climax community. Usually in both your hydrocele as well as xerocele, the climax community consists of forest only, because the forest is the well developed portion of your plants. It is having trees. They are the most advanced group of plants which have all the functionality. Hence your climax community will always be having the forest here. Once there is a forest, there is a complete succession, and the forest will go on developing, but there are no other stages of succession, or they are not yet been discovered here. This is what we mean by hydrocele here. Next we'll be learning about xerocele. So we learnt about hydrocele. As I said, in case of hydrocele, we have got different stages. Even in case of xerocele, we have got various stages here. Let me number them firstly. We have got three important stages. They are called as your early succession, followed by intermediate succession, and lastly it is later succession. So this is the three main categories into which your xerocele falls here. And followed by this, we have got sub-stages. That is, in case of early succession, we have got two sub-stages. Namely, first one is called as moss and lichen stage. Second one is called as dicotyledonous stage. And in case of intermediate succession, we have got again two substages. They are nothing but your grass stage. Fourth one is your root nodule stage. And in last one, we have got two things. They are similar to each other, but they define two stages. One is a early climax community and the climax community. This is the two other substages of your later succession here. So as you can see the diagram here, you can clearly depict that there is a gradual evolution of your plants here. As a given example in my introduction about a barren land, imagine there is a barren land without any plantation there. There are just rocks. Imagine a hill. There is no plants at all in a hill, but you have got only boulders there. So that is the first stage here, that is the boulder or rock stage here. So what's happening in a rock stage? In the initial stages, that rock will be invaded by the moss, or which we call that as common fungi or lichen. They will initially invade that particular boulder here, making way for a vegetation there. They are plants in nature and they will grow on rocks. So once they are growing on that particular rock, they have a probability of releasing an acid called as lichenic acid. So what is this lichenic acid required for? This lichenic acid can degrade the boulders there. By the degradation of this boulder, there is formation of some fine sand. See the difference what's happening here. Because of invasion of lichens here, it will produce an acid called as lichenic acid. Once this lichenic acid is produced there, it will degrade this particular boulder into fine soil. We know that for the proper growth of a plant, we require soil. So that soil is formed here. That is our first stage called as moss or lichen stage. As there is a formation of soil here, it leads for the production of a dicotyledonous plants. Because there is sand here, due to some due to some pollinational methods, it may be due to a bird, animal, air, water, any means, if some pollen or some plant part will come and fall in this particular area, that leads to the formation of your dicotyledonous stage. That is the second stage, where there is a formation of fine pebbles, because the bigger rock will be formed into a small pebbles and some sand will also be formed. That is the resultant of your first stage. You have got a fine pebbles, sand and some clay has also been found here. So in this particular condition, it prefers the growth of an dicotyledonous plants. This is what we mean by the early succession. Followed by your early succession, there is an intermediate stage. So what happens in intermediate stage? It has got other two substages. They are nothing but the grass stage as well as dicot with root nodules here. So we know that dicots are the primitive things than that of the monocots here. So the followed by your dicotyledon, there is a formation of monocots. They are having a fibrous root system. You can observe that here the dicots are having a taproot system. They will withstand the soil. That ability, they have the ability to withstand the soil or to hold the soil in a proper manner here. So followed by that, we have got some grass stage. There is the formation of grass here. So the gradual increase or gradual evolution here, lichens, dicotyledonous plant, grasses. Followed by the grasses, because of this particular grasses growth, it increases or enriches the soil with the various nutrients here, and those nutrients will add up for the growth of your dicotyledonous plants with some root nodules here. You know that the root nodules will help in the nitrogen fixation. Once there is a growth of these plants with root nodules, they will increase the nitrogen fixing mechanism. Hence the soil becomes much more fertile for the other stage, that is the later succession stage. So what happens here? There is a formation of a small trees. It may be of a neem or some other small trees will be grown in that particular area. After the formation of those trees, they will get disintegrated due to various reasons. They will form the fertility again for the large trees to grow. So you can see that how the Amazon forest is having such a huge vegetation there. How rainforests are having such a huge trees there. And you can see some sequoia trees. They are the giant trees found in various countries of our world. So how are they formed? They are the resultant of one of the zero C occurring here. We know that one point of time Earth was nothing but a barren land that got cultivated into such a huge green planet. That's because of Hydrocele or Xerocele. So these are the various stages of Xerocele here. I hope you have learned something about Hydrocele and Xerocele in this particular video. If you like my content, please like my video, share my channel, and if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.